My name is Hale Trenwick, and 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Funny how quickly that illusion can shatter when you discover your wife has been playing house with another man for the better part of a year. I'm 38, work as an IT project manager for a tech consulting firm downtown, and until recently believed my biggest problem was debugging legacy code systems. My wife Kira is 35, stunning in that corporate consultant way. Sharp suits, sharper tongue, and ambition that could cut glass. We live in one of those upscale neighborhoods where everyone pretends their lawn sprinklers cost more than most people's cars. The first crack in my perfect world came on a Tuesday. Kira was running late again, her third emergency client meeting that week. She stood in our marble-tiled foyer, checking her reflection in the mirror we'd bought during our honeymoon in Italy. "Don't wait up," she said, not looking at me. "Darren wants to review the Morrison account projections tonight." Darren Halloway, her mentor, she called him. 42 years old, real estate developer, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 watches and drove cars that cost more than my annual salary. He'd been mentoring Kira for 8 months now, ever since she started working at his consulting firm. "Sure," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I'll just be here debugging the Patterson system again." She kissed my cheek, a quick, distracted peck, and was gone. The scent of her perfume lingered, something expensive I didn't recognize. When had she started wearing new perfume? That's when I started keeping what I jokingly called my paranoia log. Little things. The way she'd started putting her phone face down during dinner. How she'd suddenly developed an interest in working out, joining that exclusive gym downtown, where Darren was a member. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer, tags still on, but not the kind she'd ever worn for me. My neighbor Marty knocked on my door the next evening while I was grilling burgers on our back patio. Marty's 50, retired, and has made neighborhood surveillance his full-time hobby. "Hey, Hale," he said, leaning against my fence with that concerned expression people get when they're about to deliver bad news wrapped in fake sympathy. "That new Range Rover's been in your driveway a lot lately when Kira's car isn't here?" I flipped a burger, buying time. Probably just a delivery or something. "3 times this week," Marty continued. "Always stays about 2 hours. Just thought you should know." After he left, I sat on my patio and stared at the driveway. 2 hours. What kind of delivery takes 2 hours? The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Kira's purse. I felt like a creep, but the paranoia was eating at me. Buried beneath receipts and business cards, I found a tube of lipstick. Deep red, expensive brand. Not her color. Kira always wore subtle pinks or nudes. Then, I found the receipt. Skyline Bar, downtown. 2 cocktails, 2 appetizers, total bill $93. Dated last Thursday, the night she'd claimed to be working late on spreadsheets. Maybe she's moonlighting as a detective, I muttered to myself, or as a walking cliche. But the real bombshell came the following Saturday at the hardware store. I was buying supplies to fix our leaky kitchen faucet when a woman approached me in the plumbing aisle. She was stunning. Dark hair, green eyes, the kind of elegant beauty that made you forget what you were shopping for. "You're Hale Trenwick," she said. It wasn't a question. "Do I know you?" "I'm Avon Bardell, Darren Halloway's wife." She paused, studying my reaction. "Your wife is in my bed with my husband right now. They don't even realize there are cameras in the house." The wrench I'd been holding slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. Around us, other shoppers continued their mundane Saturday errands, oblivious to the fact that my world had just exploded. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" Avon's smile was sharp as a blade. "You heard me. They think they're so clever sneaking around, but Darren's not as smart as he thinks he is. I've been documenting everything for months." My mind raced. Cameras, evidence. This woman, this stranger, had proof of what I'd only suspected. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because we both deserve better than being made fools of," she said. "And because I think it's time our respective spouses learned that actions have consequences." I bent down to pick up the wrench, using the moment to process what she'd said. When I straightened up, she was still watching me with those calculating green eyes. Let's not interrupt them, I said finally. Why don't we go to my place and decide what we're going to do with that camera footage? For the first time since she'd approached me, Avon's smile seemed genuine. I was hoping you'd say that. Avon followed me home in a sleek black BMW that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. I led her through the front door, past the Italian mirror where Kira had checked her reflection just that morning, into my home office. Nice setup, she said, examining my dual monitors and server rack. Darren mentioned you work in IT. He called you a harmless computer geek. Harmless, I repeated. That's flattering. She was the only person in the room more dangerous than me, and definitely better dressed. While I wore my standard weekend uniform of jeans and a polo shirt, she looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tailored black pants, silk blouse, jewelry that caught the light just right. Show me what you have, I said. Avon pulled out a tablet and swiped through several video files. Motion-activated cameras. I installed them 6 months ago when I started suspecting something was wrong. The first video made my stomach clench. Kira and Darren in what I assumed was his bedroom, tangled together on expensive sheets. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the same night she'd claimed to be reviewing projections. There's more, Avon said, swiping to another file. This one's particularly enlightening. The second video showed them afterward, lying in bed, talking. I turned up the volume and heard Kira's voice clear as day. Hale's so clueless, she was saying. He actually believes I'm working late. Sometimes I think he's too boring to even be suspicious. Darren laughed. What did you expect when you married a tech geek? At least he's stable. Pays the bills while you figure out what you really want. What I really want, Kira said, running her finger down Darren's chest, is someone who understands ambition. Someone who isn't content debugging other people's mistakes for the rest of his life. I paused the video. The room was silent except for the hum of my computer fans. How many of these do you have? And I asked. 47 videos over the past 6 months, Avon said. Plus text messages, emails, GPS data from their phones. I've been very thorough. You've been tracking their phones? Darren thinks he's tech savvy because he can use GPS. He doesn't realize I have access to our family phone account. She smiled. Amazing what you can learn when you actually read the terms of service. I called my friend Kai Dornell, a cybersecurity analyst who owed me several favors. He arrived within an hour, took one look at Avon's evidence, and whistled low. This is solid gold, he said, examining the metadata on the video files. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, even cell tower pings. Your wife and her boyfriend have been documenting their own affair. Can you verify it's authentic? I asked. Already did. This footage is legit, no editing, no manipulation. And look at this. He pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. I ran a quick analysis of their location data. Every time your wife claimed to be working late, she was at his address, every single time. Avon leaned forward. There's something else. I've been monitoring Darren's business accounts. We're married, so I have legal access. He's been using company funds to pay for their little rendezvous. Expensive restaurants, hotel rooms, even jewelry. That's embezzlement, Kai said. That's leverage, I corrected. We spent the next 3 hours building what Kai called the evidence packet. Video files, chat logs, financial records, GPS data, everything organized and cross-referenced. By the time we finished, we had enough proof to end both their careers and their reputations. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. Running late again, don't wait up. Big presentation tomorrow. I showed the message to Avon, who checked her own phone. Darren just texted me that he's working late at the office, she said. Funny thing is, I'm looking at a live feed of them in his bedroom right now. She turned her tablet toward me. There they were, my wife and her mentor, completely unaware they were being watched. Kira was wearing the red lipstick I'd found in her purse. Let's see how loyal your wife is under pressure, Avon said, her smile sharp as broken glass. I stared at the screen, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Tomorrow, I decided, Kira would learn that her harmless computer geek husband wasn't quite as clueless as she thought. Kira came home the next morning at 7:30, claiming she'd fallen asleep at the office. She looked perfectly put together, makeup fresh, not a hair out of place. Either she kept a full cosmetics kit at Darren's place, or she'd stopped somewhere to clean up. How was the big presentation? I asked, not looking up for my coffee. Exhausting, she said, pouring herself a cup. But I think we landed the Morrison account. That's great. Darren must be thrilled. Something in my tone made her glance at me sharply, but I kept my expression neutral. She grabbed a piece of toast and headed upstairs to shower. The moment I heard the bathroom door close, I texted Avon. She's here. You ready? On my way, came the reply. 20 minutes later, Kira was back downstairs in her power suit, checking that Italian mirror one more time. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said. Avon stood on my doorstep, looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Behind her, Kai waited in his car with a laptop bag. Mrs. Trenwick, Avon said as Kira appeared behind me. I'm Avon Bardell, Darren's wife. I think we need to talk. The color drained from Kira's face, but she recovered quickly. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Oh, we know each other very well, Avon said, stepping into our foyer without being invited. I've been watching you for months. Kira looked at me, confusion and panic warring in her eyes. Hale, what's going on? I gestured toward the living room. Why don't we all sit down? Avon has something she wants to show us. Kai had joined us by then, setting up his laptop on our coffee table. Avon pulled out her tablet and placed it next to his computer. Smile, I said to Kira, hitting play on the first video. You're on candid camera, and that's not waterproof mascara. The video filled the screen, Kira and Darren in his bedroom, timestamp from 2 nights ago. Kira's confident facade cracked like ice under pressure. This is illegal surveillance, she said, but her voice shook. Actually, it's not, Avon replied calmly. The cameras are in my house, which I own jointly with my husband. Perfectly legal. Kai opened a folder on his laptop. We also have text messages, GPS data, financial records, and this. He pulled up a bank statement. Your boyfriend's been using company money to fund your affair. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry, it's all here. Kira sank into our leather armchair, the same one where she'd curled up with me to watch movies during happier times. What do you want? Justice, Avon said simply. She handed Kira a manila envelope. Divorce papers, asset freeze documentation, and copies of everything we're sending to your HR department. You can't do this. We already have, I said. Your boss is expecting you for a meeting at 10 this morning. Something about workplace misconduct and misuse of company resources. Kira's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and her face went white. It's my office. Better answer it, Avon suggested. They don't like to be kept waiting. The conversation was brief and brutal. I watched my wife's career implode in real time as her boss informed her that she was suspended pending investigation. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. 15 years, she whispered. 15 years, building my career. Should have thought of that before you decided I was too boring to be faithful to, I said. By noon, the story had spread through Kira's office like wildfire. Her colleague Penny, who'd always been one step away from a scandal herself, had posted cryptic messages on social media about workplace drama and karma coming for cheaters. Marty knocked on my door around 2 o'clock, practically vibrating with excitement. Holy cow, Hale, he said. The whole neighborhood's talking. Is it true about Kira and that real estate guy? News travels fast around here, I replied. Penny's been posting updates all day. Something about security footage and company embezzlement. This is better than cable TV. That evening, Kira sat at our kitchen table with her laptop, frantically calling lawyers. I could hear fragments of conversations: wrongful termination, invasion of privacy, defamation of character. Good luck with that, I said, passing through to get a drink. Turns out, adultery and embezzlement aren't protected classes. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I never meant for this to happen. You mean you never meant to get caught? My phone buzzed with a text from Avon. Darren tried to bribe me to drop the case. I recorded the whole conversation. Want to hear it? I smiled and typed back, save it for tomorrow. We're just getting started. Darren made his first mistake the next morning by trying to intimidate me at the gym. I'd started working out at the same exclusive fitness center, where he and Kira had been conducting their affair, partly for the irony and partly because I figured it was time to stop being the harmless computer geek everyone thought I was. I was on the treadmill when he approached, all swagger and expensive workout gear. The gym was busy, prime time for the before work crowd, which meant plenty of witnesses for whatever he had planned. You need to call off your wife's little friend, he said, stepping onto the machine next to mine. I'm sorry, which friend would that be? I kept my pace steady, not looking at him. Don't play dumb. Avon's lost her mind and she's dragging you down with her. This whole thing's gonna backfire on both of you. I hit the stop button and turned to face him. Funny thing about evidence, Darren. It doesn't really care about your feelings. You have no idea what you're messing with, he said, stepping closer. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than finding out my wife's been screwing her boss for 8 months? I'd love to see you try. That's when he made his second mistake. He grabbed my arm, squeezing hard enough to leave marks. Around us, other gym members started to notice the commotion. Let go of me, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not until you listen to reason. I looked around the gym, making eye contact with several people who were now openly staring. Everyone see this? I'm being threatened by a man who's been embezzling company funds to pay for hotel rooms with my wife. Darren's grip loosened. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. Want me to show them the receipts? He released my arm and stepped back, suddenly aware that half the gym was watching us. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Kai had created. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, meet Darren Halloway, real estate developer and champion of family values. Would anyone like to see the security footage of him with my wife? Or maybe the bank statements showing how he's been funding their affair with company money? You're insane, Darren hissed. I'm thorough. There's a difference. He stormed out of the gym, but not before I heard several people taking photos with their phones. By lunchtime, Avon texted me that the story had hit 3 local gossip blogs. Social media is a beautiful thing, she wrote. Shira's been busy. Shira turned out to be Avon's friend, a social media consultant who specialized in what she called reputation management. In Darren's case, that meant managing his reputation straight into the ground. The real escalation came that afternoon in Riverside Park. I was walking the trail when Darren appeared from behind a cluster of trees, looking like he'd been waiting for me. This ends now, he said, and does it? Because from where I'm standing, it's just getting started. He moved closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have connections in the city. I can ruin you. Ruin me how? By telling people I caught my wife cheating? That's not exactly a scandal on my end. I'm warning you, and I'm ignoring you. That's when he shoved me, hard enough to send me stumbling backward. But I'd been expecting something like this. The small device in my pocket, a perfectly legal personal safety tool Kai had recommended, was already in my hand. The stun gun made contact with Darren's chest for maybe 2 seconds. Not enough to seriously hurt him, but definitely enough to drop him to his knees on the park path. He looked up at me with shock and rage. Next time you want to threaten someone, I said, make sure they're not carrying legal self-defense equipment. I called 911 from my phone. I'd like to report an assault in Riverside Park. A man attacked me, but I managed to defend myself. He might need medical attention. Darren struggled to his feet. You can't be serious. Completely serious. Officer, yes, I'm still here. The attacker is about 6'2", brown hair, wearing a gray tracksuit. He appears to be fleeing the scene now. Darren ran, actually ran, stumbling through the park like a man half his age being chased by wasps. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher until Detective Sloan arrived 20 minutes later. So, you were attacked, defended yourself, and the perpetrator fled, she asked, taking notes. That's correct. I have witnesses. There were several joggers on the trail who saw him shove me first. And you said you knew your attacker? Darren Halloway. He's been having an affair with my wife. I think he's upset that we've exposed his embezzlement scheme. Detective Sloan looked up from her notepad. Embezzlement? Oh, yes. We have extensive documentation. Bank records, receipts, GPS data. He's been using company funds to finance his affair. Would you like copies for your investigation? By evening, Darren had been arrested for assault and was facing an internal investigation at his company. Kira called me 6 times, each message more frantic than the last. Hale, Please call me back. We need to talk. This has gone too far. People are saying things, making accusations. My lawyer says I might be charged as an accessory. Please, we can work this out. I saved the messages, but didn't return her calls. Instead, I texted Avon. Phase 2 complete. Ready for Phase 3? More than ready, she replied. Time to show them what real consequences look like. Kira's counterattack came 3 days later, and I had to admit it was clever. She called the police and claimed I'd been abusing her for months, that my recent behavior was part of an escalating pattern of domestic violence. He's become obsessed with controlling me, she told Detective Sloan during what she thought was a private interview. The surveillance, the public humiliation, threatening my career, it's all part of his need to dominate and punish me for wanting independence. What she didn't know was that I'd upgraded our home security system the week before. Every room now had audio recording capabilities, all perfectly legal since I owned the house, and had posted the required notices. When she called her lawyer from our kitchen to coordinate her story, every word was captured in crystal clear digital audio. I need you to paint him as unstable, she said to Mrs. Yates, her divorce attorney. Obsessive, controlling, possibly dangerous. If we can make the abuse angle stick, I can get the house, alimony, and maybe even a restraining order. What about the evidence of your affair? Mrs. Yates asked. We'll claim it was obtained illegally. Invasion of privacy, harassment, stalking, whatever works. The key is to make him look like the aggressor. I was listening to this conversation live from my office, recording every word. When Kira hung up, I immediately sent the audio file to my own lawyer, Detective Sloan, and Avon. Avon's response was immediate. She just made a fatal error. Tonight's the charity gala at the Riverside Hotel. Darren will be there. He's on the planning committee. Time to spring our trap. The Riverside Hotel's annual charity gala was the social event of the season, attended by everyone who mattered in our city's business community. Avon had bought us tickets months ago, back when she was still playing the role of dutiful wife. I wore my best suit, the one Kira had picked out for me 2 years ago, back when she still pretended to care about my appearance. Avon looked stunning in a black evening gown that probably cost more than my car. Remember, she said as we walked into the hotel ballroom, we're not here to cause a scene. We're here to let them cause their own scene. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Avon had arranged for Margaret Chen, wife of a wealthy real estate investor, to be seated at Darren's table. Margaret was beautiful, recently divorced, and, according to Avon's research, exactly Darren's type. He won't be able to help himself, Avon explained. Darren's ego is bigger than his brain. Put him in a room with a wealthy, attractive woman, and he'll start performing his seduction routine. What Darren didn't know was that Margaret was working with us. Avon had approached her weeks ago, explained the situation, and asked for her help in exposing a serial cheater. Margaret, who'd been betrayed by her own ex-husband, was more than happy to participate. The evening proceeded exactly as planned. I watched from across the room as Darren worked his charm on Margaret, completely oblivious to the fact that she was recording their entire conversation on her phone. Within an hour, he was openly flirting with her, making the same promises he'd probably made to Kira. My wife doesn't understand me, I heard him say when I walked past their table. She's more interested in revenge than rebuilding our marriage. I'm basically a single man at this point. Margaret played her part perfectly, encouraging his advances while subtly steering the conversation toward his business practices and personal ethics. By the time dinner was served, Darren was bragging about his various conquests and complaining about how easy it was to manipulate naive women into affairs. The evening's climax came during the charity auction. I'd arranged with the event organizers to make a special presentation, ostensibly about supporting local businesses. When my name was called, I walked to the podium with a tablet in my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, I want to talk about the importance of trust in our community. Trust between business partners, trust between friends, and trust between spouses. I could see Darren at his table, suddenly alert and worried. Kira wasn't there. She'd been too embarrassed by the recent scandal to attend. But several of her former colleagues were watching with interest. My wife always told me that trust is the foundation of any successful relationship, I continued. She was right, of course. When that trust is broken, the consequences ripple through our entire community. I tapped the tablet, and the ballroom screens lit up with a carefully edited video montage. Darren and Kira's affair, his embezzlement, their recorded conversations mocking their respective spouses, and finally, audio of Darren's conversation with Margaret from earlier that evening. The room fell silent. Then the whispers started, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. At his table, Darren stood up so quickly he knocked over his wine glass. "That this is harassment," he shouted. "This is a private event." "Actually," I said into the microphone, "this is a public service announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Darren Halloway, embezzler, adulterer, and as you just heard, a man who considers himself basically single while still married." The crowd's reaction was immediate and brutal. People pulled out their phones, recording Darren's meltdown as he tried to leave the ballroom. Security guards blocked his exit, not to keep him in, but because several attendees were demanding he return the money he'd embezzled from their business deals. To my wife, I said, raising my glass in a toast, who's always been an inspiration, especially to Darren. The laughter that followed was sharp and merciless. By the time I left the podium, Darren's reputation was in ruins, and his business relationships were crumbling in real time. But the evening's real victory came later, when Detective Sloan approached me at the bar. "Interesting presentation," she said. "I especially enjoyed the part where your wife admitted to fabricating abuse allegations. That audio recording you sent me? We'll be filing charges for filing a false police report." "I'm just glad the truth is finally coming out," I said. "Oh, it's coming out all right. Your wife's lawyer called an hour ago. Apparently, Mrs. Trenwick wants to withdraw her abuse allegations and negotiate a quiet divorce settlement." I smiled and raised my glass. Too late for quiet, detective. Way too late for quiet. The final confrontation came on a Thursday night during the worst thunderstorm our city had seen in years. I was in my home office, organizing the last of the legal documents for our divorce proceedings, when my security system alerted me to movement in the backyard. Through the cameras, I watched Kira and Darren approach the house. They moved carefully, staying low, clearly trying to avoid detection. Kira had a key. I hadn't changed the locks yet, figuring she'd try something like this eventually. I activated the house's smart security system, locking all doors and windows while sending alerts to Avon and Kai. Then I settled back to watch the show. They entered through the kitchen door, whispering urgently to each other. Through the audio system, I could hear every word. "The evidence has to be here somewhere," Kira was saying. "His office, maybe the bedroom safe." "This is insane," Darren replied. "Breaking and entering? We're going to prison. We're going to prison anyway if we don't find those files. Do you know what they're saying about us? My own mother won't take my calls." I waited until they reached the living room, then activated the house's entertainment system. Every screen in the house, televisions, tablets, even the smart refrigerator display, lit up with their greatest hits, video footage of their affair, audio recordings of their conversations, bank statements showing the embezzlement. "Welcome to my home," I said through the intercom system. "I hope you're enjoying the show." Kira screamed, spinning around, as if she could find me hiding in the shadows. Darren ran for the front door, but the smart locks held firm. "Let us out," he shouted. "I don't think so," I replied. "You came here uninvited. The least I can do is provide some entertainment." That's when Avon and Kai arrived, along with what looked like half the neighborhood. Word had spread through our community's social media groups that something was happening at the Trenwick house, and people had gathered on the street to watch. Avon let herself in through the back door. I'd given her the security code earlier, while Kai set up his equipment on the front lawn. Within minutes, he was live streaming the entire scene to social media platforms across the internet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Avon announced as she entered the living room, "welcome to the world's worst reality show. Tonight's episode, What Happens When Cheaters Break Into Their Victim's House." The crowd outside cheered. Through the windows, I could see neighbors holding up their phones, recording everything. Marty had brought popcorn. I finally made my entrance, walking down the stairs in jeans and a t-shirt, completely calm while Kira and Darren looked like trapped animals. "So," I said, "breaking and entering. That's a felony, you know." We just wanted to talk, Kira said, but her voice shook. Talk? You could have called. Oh, wait, you did call. 6 times. I chose not to answer. Darren tried to push past me toward the door, but I stepped aside and gestured toward the backyard. If you're in such a hurry to leave, the back door's open. Of course, you'll have to get past the crowd first. Through the kitchen window, we could see more neighbors gathering in the backyard. Someone had set up lawn chairs. This is humiliation, Kira said. This is justice, Avon corrected. You humiliated your husband for months. You stole money, lied to investigators, and tried to frame him for domestic abuse. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? The police arrived 20 minutes later, but not to arrest me. Detective Sloan had reviewed the security footage and confirmed that Kira and Darren had broken into my house. They were the ones leaving in handcuffs. As they were led away, I stood in my doorway, soaked by the rain, but feeling more alive than I had in years. The neighborhood crowd was cheering, Kai was still live streaming, and Avon was standing beside me with that sharp smile I'd grown to appreciate. Well, I said, watching the police cars disappear into the storm, I guess revenge really is a dish best served live streamed. Avon laughed, a sound like breaking glass and champagne bubbles. Next time they'll think twice before underestimating the harmless computer geek. The storm was passing, but the lightning still illuminated the crowd of neighbors on my lawn, all of them witnesses to the night my old life finally, completely shattered. And from the pieces, something stronger was already beginning to emerge. I turned to Avon, rain dripping from my hair, and realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even. It's becoming someone your enemies never saw coming. The story ends here, at this moment of triumph, with the storm clearing and justice served. No epilogue needed. No redemption arc required. Just the sweet taste of a plan perfectly executed, and the knowledge that sometimes the underdog wins.